Hello everyone, my name is Rasen, and welcome back to the Rider Kickcast. I'm here with Fang.
Hi, we're back.
You know, every now and again I misplace my Fang, and I'm like, damn, I really need to find my Fang. But you're here.
Yep, and I'm not in the mouth of some dog. No siree. Nope.
No, not yet at least. You never know.
Not yet.
As always, I say as if we've recorded more than 3 of these, with this being the third. I guess we can get a little bit into our Kamen Rider related shenanigans before we dive into the episodes themselves. We are going to be covering today episodes 6 through 9 of the original Kamen Rider series. Nice. So,
Nice.
I haven't been doing too much Tokusatsu related other than I decided to kind of branch out from my typical mecha model kit building experience of building Gunpla and related mecha models from other brands such as Kotobukiya and whatnot. And I branched out. I ordered a figurized standard Kamen Rider Kabuto kit, which actually I believe you also built not super long ago, and that was your first model kit, right?
Hell yeah, it was. Oh boy. Yeah, the Kamen Rider model kits are something else. I have I have them on my shelf right in front of me right now. I got 7 of these kits so far. They got me real good. They got me real good with these.
That's how they get you. Bandai don't fuck around.
God damn it.
Yeah. It's been an interesting experience. So I've never built a figurized before. I've glanced at them from a distance, but I've always just been more like, I'd rather get Gundam model kit stuff or whatever. But Kabuto kit looked pretty cool, and I decided to just go for it when it finally went down enough in price, because when they're out of stock in places, they're usually hard to find for decent prices, but it seems like there was a restock, so I was able to find it for around its list price. Ordered that. Currently waiting to do the same for Kamen Rider Joker, which, even though I've never seen double, that's a cool design, and I kind of want it, so that's the other one I have my eye on right now. But yeah, I overall, so far, I'm halfway through the kit. I've built the head, torso, and right arm, and I will say it is probably the kit that, of that type or of that price range, that has the most color correcting stickers I've ever had to deal with, which was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
I will say, as I've continued building it, there are some spots that are really bad problem areas, like the side of the torso are supposed to be silver, and they give you these big stickers to wrap around, and they just don't look good at all, but they give you these tiny straps of reflective silver to put around the wrists, and they're supposed to look like straps, and those are fine. There's some small parts here and there, like the eye stickers look fine, and they do the cool thing where it's kind of like a sticker that's behind some more reflective material, so that it looks really nice and high quality. I guess the one thing that I guess kind of makes sense for why it would be that way too is I know that for the figurized standard kits, they also are a little more committed to making the actual plastic have different finishes on them compared to stuff like the Gundam kits, which are a little more uniform most of the time. Every now and again you'll get a little bit more of a soft rubbery material for very few kits and all that, but most of the time they're pretty uniform, kind of have the same finish to them. Whereas with the Kamen Rider kit that I've built so far, I noticed the black parts of it are a lot more matte, kind of to make it feel a little more leathery or look a little more leathery, and then the red parts were more kind of that glossy red you see in the actual suit in the show, and the silver parts were more chrome than the rest of them. So that was kind of appreciated. I'm sure that hiked up the price and caused them to have to not make a few parts and have you use stickers instead. But other than that, pretty okay, pretty solid model kit so far. I'm having a good time with it.
That's good. Yeah, I think for me the main appeal of the figurized kits is just the fact that usually, on average, they're half the price of the actual higher quality figures that you can get of Kamen Rider. So that, I think that was the biggest draw for me for the figurized sets. And yeah, as you say, a lot of them are very sticker heavy. Some of them more than others. The X8 ones, I've only built Gem, which is one of the two X8 sets that they have. That has a lot of stickers. Like the entire model almost hinges on the stickers. So
Oh, that's always rough. If you're not painting, especially.
Yeah. Like I think generally the further back that you go in the timeline of Kamen Rider, the less stickers you have to deal with. The Kuga kits are not that bad, and I assume Agito won't be that bad as well with that, since it's mostly just like one or two details here or there that you can honestly paint yourself, aside from like the belt buckle. But actually, never mind, because I'm looking at my Ryuki figure right now, and that has quite a few stickers, and that's coming from the fact that it comes with like the dragon that appears in the show as well. So, that one is yeah. I will say, out of all the ones I've built so far, the Ryuki one is by far the coolest, just because it has a fucking dragon with it. I think, like, 12-year-old me is very pleased with that. So.
Yeah, and as far as I know, so it's different from Gunpla too, whereas, I think that they can get away with this more just because it's kind of, like, of all of Bandai's brands, that's like the model kit friendly one. But like Gunpla, you can get in different grades and scales and stuff, where like if you want something that's like, oh, I just want like a model kit of this thing, like you can get a high grade, which I feel like is kind of around what a figurized standard is equivalent to in terms of like general size and part count and overall quality of the kit. But if you want to shell out a little more cash, pay a bit more of a premium, you could go up to a real grade, which is just like the same size but a lot more detailed, more parts, or even you could do like a master grade, which is bigger and higher quality and a little more intricate. Whereas the Kamen Rider kits, I feel like they just kind of have the figurized standard, and they're all kind of in that same line, so you're kind of stuck with what you got there, unless you want to just not get a model kit at all and get a figure. But like you said, those are pricey. And in my opinion, I don't buy as many figures as I once did. Honestly, I was never that super big on buying figures before I found model kits anyways, but I always have a lot more fun building things now than I do buying figs and whatnot. So, except for Nendoroids, which I just find adorable, but...
Yeah, Nendoroids are good. I don't have any, but they're good. Yeah, no, I grew up on Legos and stuff like that, so like building these kits is definitely fun for me as well. Yeah. I mean, I was it? I was just gonna say, like, with what you're saying with like the different grades, they do have the entry level figures for like 01 and Saber, but like those ones don't interest me all that much, because what are you gonna do with it in terms of posing, you know?
Yeah, those are legit. Like, hey, if you think you might like this, here's some real basic stuff that you can get for under $10.
Yeah, which is a shame, because like I really like the 01 suit, so I hope they do a proper figurize of that at some point, so that would be nice. But
I was it's a good way to just kind of unwind for a day if you have kind of a lazy day, just to collect your thoughts, listen to podcasts or music or do whatever, and just chill out and work with your hands. It's a good time for that. In fact, I was doing that one lazy Sunday, almost a week from the day we're recording this. We're recording this late, actually, I should say. We usually record these on Tuesday nights to be put out the following Saturday. We're actually recording this Saturday, and this episode probably won't be out into the world until tomorrow, so it's going to be a day late. Sorry about that, everyone. But there's a good reason for that. So I was unwinding and having a good time, just building my Kamen Rider Kabuto kit, and I was like, yeah, this is a good time, doing chores and other stuff kind of off in the background, coming back to the kit every now and again, kind of doing like work a little bit on the kit, make some food, work a little bit on the kit, run out and do some errands, work a little bit on the kit, clean her up around the place a little bit, just having this nice flow to my day. I was feeling real good at ending that Sunday, and I'm like, yeah, this is the high life. And then the following Monday morning, I learned I'm getting fucking laid off, and my last day of work is going to be October 22nd, and I have to look for a new job. Yeah, so the rest of this week has been me scrambling along with all of my coworkers who are also being laid off, or have been laid off. In fact, actually more than 1/4. A good chunk of the people who are on my immediate team were just fucking like, they started working in the morning, then they got called in, they're like, hey, you're fucking done, nerd. And then the rest of us are like, hey, you're not done yet, but you're going to be working till the end of October, or close to the end of October, and we're all like, fucking great. So yeah, that's consumed my week. And when I came out of that meeting with that nasty fucking businessman, who I despise with all of my heart, I looked at my monitor, and then I looked at the camera, and I thought, this can only be the work of one thing. Shocker.
It's always Shocker.
Yeah.
It's always fucking Shocker. My God. Fuck.
Yeah. So if I turn into an evil robot, themed after an animal or plant or other type of concept, you know what happened, people.
Oh, God. Ooh. Yeah.
Speaking of animals and turning into things, why don't we start talking about episode 7 of Kamen Rider?
Yeah.
Episode 7 of Kamen Rider is the second part of the two-parter that we left off on last time. It is called either The Duel with the Grim Reaper Chameleon, World Fair Impression, or The Deadly Chameleon, Showdown at the Old World's Fair. The episode begins where we left off last time. Kamen Rider falls into the trap room. The Chameleon explains as he falls that this is a special rider killer trap that they've designed to deal with him. Kamen Rider attempts to jump back up, but the trapdoor closes before he can reach it. The Shocker boss explains that the walls are 1 meter thick and were built so that he could not break them down. The ceiling rapidly begins to fall onto Kamen Rider, who uses his strength to keep it from crushing him. The narrator then explains that the power of the Kamen Rider is not infinite. Kamen Rider's belt generates energy as the turbine spins. While Kamen Rider can store a large amount of power at any given time, he will eventually need to generate more power with the turbine. In a windless environment like the one he's in now, he will eventually run out of power. I wish we had this explained a little bit earlier, because we're on episode 7 here, and it's just kind of felt like as soon as he turns into Kamen Rider, it's over. And to be fair, it's going to continue feeling like that for the rest of the episodes we're talking about here. But it is nice to know that there is at least a weakness there.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we're going to see that pop up again. Because it's very situational. Like, how do you get a person in a spot where there's, like, no wind except for doing what they just did right now? Where he's trapped in a tiny space.
Yeah. Like, I wonder if they can think of any other reason to cut off the wind other than tiny claustrophobic space.
Yeah, they're already relying a lot on trapdoor pitfalls and stuff to deal with Hongo, as we will see in even future episodes beyond this point. So I hope that they get the creative juices flowing with trying to find ways to deal with that, because that'd be fun. As the Chameleon taunts him, Kamen Rider is forced to transform back into Hongo. As he's being crushed, Hongo declares that the box in Mr. Heinrich's possession is indeed fake, and if they kill him, they will never learn the location of the true box. The Doctor tests this claim by attempting to open the box with a special frequency, and then by shooting it. This proves that the box is indeed fake, as the frequency did not cause the box to react and open, as it was supposed to, and the bullet went right through the box, while the Doctor states that the real box was built to withstand even a nuclear explosion. In spite of the Chameleon's protests, the Shocker leader demands Hongo be released as long as he is surrounded by Shocker agents. Hongo reveals that the real box was given to Assistant Professor Naoki Abe of Jonan University, who in turn sent it to Dr. Oyama of Osaka Hanshin University. Satisfied with this answer, the Shocker leader dares Hongo to escape his wrath as he orders his forces to kill Hongo. As Hongo does not have any power stored from his belt, he is forced to hide from the Shocker agents pursuing him. During his escape, Hongo enters a room and finds the captured Tatsuo Tsunada, father of Yumi, and also, as you may remember, the guy who was bothered at the very start of last episode by the Chameleon and captured by him. As Shocker agents enter the room, Hongo notices water dripping down from the ceiling and determines the room they're in must be underneath the drain pipe. He grabs Tsunada and leaps through the ceiling. This is becoming also a recurring element of this show.
Yeah. God.
So then they said it's a drain pipe, but then we cut to the beach as if, like, Hongo and, like, as if literally the room was literally just underneath the lake.
Yeah, like I was wondering, like, does the base just get flooded because of that? Like,
right?
Just a hard cut. I assume, like, logically, if it was, like, a pipe, like, they probably swam a bit, but, like...
That's kind of what I figured.
Yeah, it's still a pretty abrupt cut. Also good thinking on Hongo for thinking ahead, because if he did not do the box swap trickery, which there's gonna be more of that, he would have been... the season would have been over real quick.
Yeah. Satisfied... oh, wait, no, I already read that paragraph. Whoops. We cut to the beach where Hongo and Tsunada pop out of the water and swim to shore. Hongo reassures Tsunada that he is now in safe hands and his daughter Yumi is safe as well. Tsunada asks Hongo where the box is, and Hongo demands to know what the box contains before he answers. This is where Tsunada explains that just before the fall of Berlin in World War II, Hitler hid his treasure on the submarine that Tsunada captained. Hitler's plan was to flee to Japan and use the wealth he had entrusted to the Japanese to rebuild the Third Reich. However, Hitler could not make his escape in time, and ended up killing himself, leaving the treasure unused. A map to the treasure is stored within the box. Hearing a vehicle come towards them, Hongo pushes Tsunada to the ground and then stealthily investigates. As he sees Ruriko driving by on a motorcycle, he flags her down. She said she couldn't just let him go out on his own, so she decided to go to Lake Baiwa herself. Hongo tells Ruriko that he's going to take Tsunada to his daughter, and that she should then go meet back up with Mr. Tachibana. He then also takes her bike and then goes, like, drives off with with Tsunada on his back, and I'm like, what an asshole. Like, are you just gonna make Ruriko walk? Okay.
Yeah, it's like this one scene in Yakuza 0 where Kiryu drives off with, like, Nishikiyama's car. It's really fucking funny.
But also, I'm thinking, like, we established that there is a Shocker base, like, right there, and I'm assuming they know who Ruriko is. That's not...
Yeah!
I would be pissed if I was Ruriko.
God. No, it's fine. She can handle it. She can fight back. Yeah, totally.
She seems pretty, like, fine. Like, she seems pretty chill with it. She's like, okay, sounds like a plan. And it's like, okay, yeah, I would be terrified if I was you. But, yeah. No, also, since we were talking about Hitler stuff again, I wanted to bring this up last episode, and then I think something else came up and I got sidetracked and never could say it. It fascinates me thinking about how old this show is, that it is much closer to the actual end of World War II than it is to our time period.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think about this a lot with shows from the 70s, especially when they talk about fascism, including the original Mobile Suit Gundam, which is also much closer to the events of World War II than it is to us experiencing it, well beyond 40 years later. Yeah, like, that shit just fascinates me. We established it's the 50th anniversary of Kamen Rider this year. We passed it just a few months back or whatever. Like, we are to Kamen Rider's time as, like, 1921 was to Kamen Rider's time, which is kind of mind-boggling to think about in a way. I feel like is just a good thing for all of us to keep in the back of our mind as we experience this piece of pop culture history. So, yeah. From a faraway building, the Chameleon uses a pair of binoculars to spy on the office of Dr. Oyama. However, as the camera cuts to the room's interior, we see that the doctor is actually Mr. Tachibana in disguise, and his assistant is actually Ruriko in disguise. His fake mustache makes him sneeze, and Ruriko helps him reattach it. They wonder where Takeshi is.
It's so goofy. Like,
it was really... it was pretty funny. Like, especially later on in the episode, we learned that Dr. Oyama is actually, like, Hongo's mentor figure. I guess at least in terms of, like, the biochemistry realm. And we have still not met him. We've just met Mr. Tachibana disguised as him. Wait, no, he wasn't the doctor from last episode, right? That was Abe, right? Who then gave it to Dr. Oyama? That makes, okay.
Something like that. I don't
Too many doctors.
I don't remember. Yeah, lots of doctors, lots of time has passed between us watching the episodes.
That's the problem with two-parters and cutting up the episodes how we have. We're gonna forget shit sometimes. It's bound to happen. Later that night, the Chameleon scales the wall leading to Dr. Oyama's office. Hongo calls the office, and Mr. Tachibana reassures him that everything is fine. After hanging up, an invisible force throws Mr. Tachibana and grabs the box. It's the Chameleon, who reveals he knows the real identities of Tachibana and Ririko. I also just want to point out here, as he is making his way into this building, there's a really cool shot where he's looming outside this, I can't remember if it's like a slit window type thing, but he's like looking in from some form of glass or another, and then the glass just shatters as he comes into view, and it's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Mr. Tachibana confidently says that he's going to keep him there until Hongo arrives, which honestly I thought was very funny. But as he goes to swing at the Chameleon, he vanishes into thin air. He knocks out Tachibana with a blow to the back with the Nazi box, and then corners Ririko. Hongo arrives at the office, but he's too late, and he realizes that both have been abducted by Shocker. Back at the Shocker headquarters, Dr. Heinrich opens the box, but there's nothing inside. Mr. Tachibana laughs and says that there may have once been a time when only Nazi science could have made such a box, but that was 26 years ago. He reveals that Dr. Oyama is Hongo's mentor, and a genius in electrophysics who had no difficulty getting the box opened. Honestly,
I love
good
this
scene.
bit.
Yeah, it's real good.
Science moves on.
Yeah, I love the idea of, because you always see this pop up in the media, especially kind of around this time where, I could be wrong, but I also kind of believe this was the time where it was becoming more clear to people that there, maybe not so much the stuff with, some Nazi scientists were then just kind of integrated into other governments, like science programs, which fucking sucks, but, a lot of Nazi scientists and researchers and academics and stuff like that just fled to different countries. You know, a lot of them fled to South America. A lot of them fled all over the place and all that.
Yeah.
And there was kind of these legends and rumors starting to spread about what they could be up to, and also just the idea that there were so many different Nazi super weapons and wonder weapons that were in development, and all of this advanced technology that was even well beyond what everyone else in the field had, and a lot of stuff that was blown out of proportion and all that shit. So to have the show just kind of laugh in the face of that and be like, yeah, Shocker believes that, but like the world has fucking moved on. It's been a quarter of a century since World War II. We have a lot better technology now than we did then. It was very nice to see.
Yeah. I think this show has been pretty good so far in showing, hey, these guys are kind of chumps in, more ways than one.
Yeah, I've loved that element of it.
Yeah.
Just as the Chameleon is about to kill Mr. Tachibana in anger, the Shocker boss tells him to wait, as both Mr. Tachibana and Ririko could be used as hostages that they could trade for the Nazi treasure map. The Chameleon calls the office and tells Hongo that Shocker has taken his friends hostage. If he wants to save them, he will have to meet Chameleon Man at Senri Expo Land, the old site of the World's Fair. I'm sure this is a place that people would have recognized at the time. I meant to look this up before we started recording, but that slipped my mind. But I'm going to look this up right now, actually. Let me just look. Senri Expo Land. I'm sure they had a World's Fair type thing. Well, I'm seeing theme park review, roller coaster database, this Wikimapia, former site of Expo Land. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this place has Expo Land was a amusement zone in it opened in 1970. and thrived for over 30 years as an amusement park. Had more than 40 rides and attractions, including 8 roller coasters, 19 restaurants and shops, and then the park was permanently closed in 2009, it looks like. And also a 19-year-old died in a roller coaster accident, apparently, in 2007, so that's not great.
That's unfortunate. Damn.
Yeah. Oof. None of the ride's vehicle axles had been replaced for over 15 years.
Oh, woo! God. Ooh.
This is why I don't like roller coasters. I am not a roller coaster person. I never have been. My fucking folks were always like, "Oh, it's perfectly fine. You need to get over it." Always would try to force me to go onto roller coasters as a child. Always terrified me. Always left them crying. I have never, ever since I've been old enough to assert myself, I have never gone on a roller coaster. I fucking hate these things and shit like this. You read up of enough of these, and I know that 99% of these rides are safe as hell, and they have a bunch of various safety standards, but I don't want to be that fucking person who ends up being the exception. I fucking hate roller coasters.
That's understandable. I've built up a tolerance to roller coasters over the years, but that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't want to go onto a trip to this amusement park and be like, oh, well, I'm on a vacation. Let's go on the roller coaster, and that happens.
See, I'm more of a water slide person. I'm perfectly fine with water slides. I don't know why. I actually think they're technically less safe than roller coasters, but in my mind they're safer, or they make me feel safer. I don't get it.
I mean, it probably has to do with you're in control of your own body in the water slide versus being at the mercy of the machine.
And I think they're technically not as fast, but you're still going fast enough to seriously hurt yourself if something goes horribly wrong, but whatever.
Oh yeah. Fucking Action Park would tell you that much.
Shoutouts to the Wisconsin Dells. There's 5 of you listening to this from the Midwest who are yeah, it's a cool place. Anyways, so getting back to our recap here. We get some establishing shots of the fairgrounds. There's also a tiny hair stuck on top of the camera lens during one of their panning shots, and it's just waving at the top of the frame.
I did notice that.
It's very distracting.
I didn't register it at the time, but I did notice it enough to remember now that was a thing.
I'm used to seeing that more with old anime and cartoons where you get dust and little particles and little hairs stuck between the animation cells and all that, and they're really hard to get out, so they're just whatever, we need to roll with it and just accept the fact that they're there.
The aesthetic grime, as it were.
Which that's just how old animation be before they're able to clean that up a little bit more. But I'm not used to seeing that in shows, at live action shows. So the Shocker agents run out of hiding as soon as they hear the sound of a motorcycle, but are surprised to see that nobody is on the motorcycle and it's just driving on its own.
This is a very funny bit, because I just love that Hongo decides to just launch the motorcycle at them.
Well, I think it's being remote controlled because we get I'll cover it later, but they ask where he possibly could be, and Hongo yells, "I'm right here." The camera pans upward, revealing him to be standing on top of a roller coaster track high up. He does a flip off the track and lands onto the fairgrounds below. I was a little bit surprised he didn't transform doing this flip. Again, we're kind of fast and loose about what heights and at what jumps count for being good enough to transform Kamen Rider. He fights the Shocker agents, runs over to the hostages that they have tied to a post, and then they also have a green tarp or blanket or something over their heads. And he's like, "Mr. Tachibana," and he chops at the ropes and stuff to free the hostages. But as the blanket is removed, it turns out that they're not actually Mr. Tachibana and Ruriko. It's actually a trap, and the hostages were actually Shocker agents who then also start to fight Hongo. Very good bit.
Yeah.
Hongo and the agents continue to fight, doing battle on the roller coaster infrastructure far above the ground. The Chameleon suddenly uncloaks himself and tackles Hongo, pinning him onto the roller coaster track. During their scuffle, the Chameleon grabs the treasure map from Hongo's pocket and tells him to look towards a nearby building where he sees Ruriko and Mr. Tachibana tied up near the top. The Chameleon boasts to Hongo that his friends will soon be killed. Hongo frees himself and states the fight isn't over yet and jumps off the track and onto his motorcycle, which he seems to have been he seems to be controlling remotely with his belt. Like, he flips this like thing on his belt, it's like a weird dial, and then the bike kind of turns and comes towards him as he's falling so he can land on it. So I assumed that's what he was doing earlier as well. But they don't really go into it, and we've never seen him do it before this, and also we don't see it in the remaining 2 episodes. So yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere. I also thought in that first scene that he had launched his bike at first, but then it was like turning and stuff too, and I'm like, that's not how bikes work when you... What's going on? It was weird.
Okay, hear me out too. Like, I almost thought for a moment there was like a Chameleon thing going on with that, because Chameleon man.
Like, he's like, I uncovered your secret, Chameleon man, and he starts to go invisible as well.
Yeah,
that'd be sick as hell. Anyways, he drives towards the building as Shocker gives chase. Hongo uses his superhuman speed to run up the JRPG final dungeon spiral staircase that surrounds the tower. This is straight out of the end of Digital Devil Saga 1, I'm sorry.
Damn, Rasen sees a tower. Oh shit, it's a JRPG.
I feel called out. Anytime I see a giant spiral staircase, like up a tower, I'm like, yo, it's just like the Karma facility from or not the Karma facility, the whatever the fuck the tower's called in, Digital Devil Saga 1.
Yeah.
But whatever. So... Unfortunately, Hongo's too late. Chameleon Man materializes next to his captives. Hongo thinks to himself that the only way for him to win now is to transform into Kamen Rider. But if he does that, then Ruriko will know that he's a cyborg and he can't bring himself to transform. This is where I stopped writing notes, paused the episode, and went, wait, what the fuck? I am so confused. I thought she already knew.
Yeah, right? Like... this feels like something that's already been known, or at least
I don't have the time for this right now in my life, but I kind of wanted to go back and watch the first 6 episodes because, like, I kind of figured that there was a conversation that, like, the way everyone acts in previous episodes before the 3 episodes we watch now, I was under the impression Ruriko was in on it with Mr. Tachibana and Hongo. And I assumed, like, Shiro and Hiromi were and all that, too. So, like, I guess they just all believe that, like, oh, yeah, Mr. Tachibana and Takeshi Hongo just, like, go out and fight Shocker. And every now and again, the superhero randomly shows up named Kamen Rider and helps us,
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that, like, in the setting, like... I feel like Ruriko has enough context clues to figure out herself anyways.
It's so fucking weird. Like, it feels like a very weird retcon, but this baffled me. Like, it completely threw me for a loop. Like, I was racking my brain for, like, a good 5 minutes before continuing the episode. Like, does this track with what we've seen so far? And I don't think it does, but whatever. This is the new law of the land, at least as far as this batch of episodes is concerned.
Rider Watchers, please comment below if there's anything that can clarify this.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping going into this recording that you were going to be like, no, Rasen, you just, like, were dumb and misread the show up to this point. Like, this was never clarified. I am happy that I was not the only person confused, at least. Like,
yeah, at the very least, I just don't remember. Yeah, like...
But yeah, this threw me for a loop. As Hongo hesitates, a Shocker agent runs up behind him and throws a net over him. He's knocked off balance. Chameleon Man whips out his tongue and then starts to strangle Hongo. In his attempt to fight back, Hongo is knocked over the railing and starts to plummet to the ground below. The fall causes him to transform into Kamen Rider. We cut to the outskirts of the fairgrounds where Chameleon Man tells his hostages that they will be useful to have around if Kamen Rider shows up. Dr. Heinrich looks at the Nazi treasure map and states that the treasure is hidden in the forest right next to the fairgrounds. How convenient. Mm-hmm. They go into the woods where they find a white wooden cross marking the spot where the treasure is buried. As Chameleon Man and Dr. Heinrich dig, they unearth a giant white coffin with a Nazi flag on it. Chameleon Man opens the lid, revealing the Kamen Rider inside. So I just wanted to let everyone know, I was howling for like the next 2 to 3 minutes of this show. I lost my fucking mind. This is like peak television right here. I actually went back and recorded this and posted this to Twitter. Like, what the fuck am I watching? This is great. So he leaps out of the coffin and does battle with the Shocker agents. Dr. Heinrich attempts to shoot at him, but the bullet bounces off of Kamen Rider's torso and is all malformed and shit as it falls into the grass. Kamen Rider kind of just ignores him for now. Does battle with the Shocker agents some more. Ends up grabbing one of the swords used by the Shocker agents. Actually, this is his second sword, because he grabbed a sword prior to this and started like fighting them with the sword, like fencing them. And then he grabs another sword and then throws it at the Nazi scientist, impaling his gun-holding arm onto a tree, which is sick as hell.
Yeah.
Kamen Rider engages Chameleon Man in combat after dealing with his minions, and is even able to land a blow on him when he turns invisible. I also thought it was really funny because Chameleon Man is standing in front of a tree and then turns invisible, and then Kamen Rider, we see him like look around a little bit and then just jump up into the air and do a kick. And hit Chameleon Man, who apparently just didn't move at all. He was still in front of the tree.
Yeah! Oh, I was
he's
thinking, never gonna get me.
Games. Yeah, like, he's gonna expect me to move, but if I actually stand still, it's gonna really fuck with him. And Kamen Rider ain't having it. He's like, no, you didn't move, asshole.
Yeah.
So, the Chameleon is real shook at this point, and he asks Kamen Rider if there was ever even a Nazi secret treasure to begin with. Kamen Rider responds that there indeed was, but he chucked it into the Pacific Ocean because it was a tainted treasure, generated by the evils of the human heart. With a mighty rider kick followed by a rider chop, Chameleon Man is destroyed, and this is shown with a cool fractured glass effect where he gets chopped, and then we see like a still image of Chameleon Man standing in the woods, and then like the frame like shatters as he's defeated. This is cool as shit. And
oh man, like the rider chop doesn't come nearly as frequently as like kick or punch, but man, this one scene makes a pretty good argument that rider chop is fucking cool.
This is the point of the episode where I'm like, this was also directed by Itaru Orita, huh? And then I checked later and I was like, yeah, it fucking was. I could tell. This man makes gold. Every time this man has the reins, he makes gold. Back at Cafe Amigo, the Tsunade family is reunited and they enjoy a cake with Hongo and his friends. But then Hongo has to have his end of episode depressive moment where he walks out of the cafe with a sad look on his face. He then runs out into the street. He sees 2 puppies playing in a grassy lot next to a small cemetery, which then at least brings a smile to our hero's face, and then he runs over to play with the 2 pups. As he does this, the narrator states that Takeshi Hongo has once again foiled Shocker's evil scheme, but still must suffer through his existence as a cyborg as he continues his fight against evil.
The puppies are pretty funny just because, like, those are just puppies, huh? Like,
yeah, I was like, what the fuck? This is just like, oh, this is just something to throw at the end here. I think the puppy shows up in the next episode now, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I was gonna say on the next episode, like, what a weird, like, foreshadowing into the next episode.
Because that has to be the same puppy. At the very least, even if it's not in canon supposed to be the same puppy, like, it's clearly one of those 2 dogs, right? It's like the same size and looks like the same and everything, but... No, there's some reuse between these 3 episodes, actually, which we'll talk about. But yeah, this episode fucking ruled. I think this might be... I don't know, because I like the Saracenian episode a lot too, but I think these 2 episodes combined might make up my favorite episode of this show. I'm not sure yet, but I think maybe the Saracenian just slightly edges it out. But This was fucking great.
Yeah, I think this definitely had like my favorite fight scene for sure. Like,
oh yeah, the end of episode fight is great. The effects are on point. The glass shattering that they do for this are phenomenal.
Yeah, like the glass effects in particular are the only instance so far of like the special effects actually not being like that distracting and actually being pretty fucking cool. Like,
and very clearly communicates what happened. This fucker got fractured.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool. And also the you can really tell that they were hyped as shit that they got the rights to use these fairgrounds as the stage for most of this episode's action. Like they have so many dedicated like panning shots and like so many different angles where you see this park from. And I guess if it opened up in 1970, I'm sure this was relatively recent. Like this must have been a big get for them. Like, you know, like this was a new popular thing probably in the area. And it was probably just a cool thing for them to be able to work with. But just seeing them fight around like the I almost said railroad, like the roller coaster tracks, and you know, being able to use all the different park infrastructure and do fight scenes choreographed around that. Just this is peak Kamen Rider so far. I really love this episode.
Yeah. I can't imagine being one of the kids watching this episode and be like, "Oh, Mom, can I go to the Kamen Rider amusement park that has not updated their infrastructure in how many years?"
Well, that was in 2007. So
yeah.
I think we're seeing the park in its beautiful youth and prime, and then eventually, over time, as with many of these sorts of attractions, business becomes tough to get. Other attractions with higher quality infrastructure and a more cutting-edge technology base to work with get built up, and you struggle to keep in business, and then because you're making less money, things like infrastructure fall to the side, and upkeep becomes a problem and costly, and capitalism does its job, and things decay, and eventually there's horrific things that happen, and then it rots away and closes down. And that's the story of business, baby. Anyways, let's move on to episode.
That's how time works.
Yeah. Episode 8. So this is where I want to say the thing that I'm noticing here is that sometimes when we have the two different versions of the episode titles, one of them sounds like a BuzzFeed Unsolved episode where we have Strangeness, Bee-Woman, or The Creepy Bee-Woman. Rest in peace, BuzzFeed Unsolved True Crime, which ended recently. Buzzsolved, yeah, Buzzsolved. Yeah. That's what all the hip fans call it, Buzzsolved. No, but yeah. Anyways, a man calls his daughter Sachiko over to dinner. As she runs into the room, she accidentally steps on her father's glasses. Fang, you wear glasses, right?
Yes, I wear glasses.
So
what about them?
My vision's always been perfectly fine. I've never had to wear contacts or glasses or anything, so I am out of my element here when I talk about glasses. Fang, as a glasses wearer, it is really weird to just lay your glasses down on a newspaper on the floor, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Because these are expensive, right? Most of the time. Yeah. I don't know how much
glasses
cost.
Okay, no, actually, I have a pretty good answer to this. Like, I don't know how much glasses cost, like, back then in Japan, but there's a specific thing that, okay, so, like, for context, my family and we've been able to go overseas to Asia in the past couple of years a few times, and every time we go overseas, that's when we get our glasses. We take our prescriptions and get it from an overseas vendor wherever we're at, because glasses in Asia are cheap as fuck compared to the US.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
so I don't know. Yeah, like, I don't know how it is back then, but definitely right now, Yeah, like, it's not only is it cheaper, but it's also just faster to, like, get repaired. Like, in this episode, like, the dad, like, gets his glasses repaired pretty quickly, and definitely is a far cry from, like, the bureaucratic process that happens in the US for glasses.
Okay. Cause like just like knowing people in my life who do wear glasses, like whenever they like put them off their face and like you have to set them down somewhere, it's like super careful. You make sure to put them on something soft too, so that you don't like end up scratching it on like the wood of a table or like but just like it kind of shocked me to just see this dude just like, oh yeah, I have my glasses on the like living room floor basically, like just on some newspaper, like so much so that like, oh yeah, like his daughter ran in and just like broke him. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for your insight, because I would have had no clue.
Oh yeah,
that.
no, for sure. And even then, like, I'm not one to speak either, because sometimes I leave my glasses in like really, really dumb places, and that's just because I'm absent-minded. So sometimes that just happens. But yeah.
Anyways, the father states that he'll have to go out and buy new ones, which makes his daughter sad, but then the father laughs and reassures her that it's okay. At the glasses store, the father tries on a new pair, which his daughter approves of. The clerk tells the man that the store only opened recently, but has already received wonderful reviews. We then zoom in to the clerk's face, who gives the father an ominous glare. Later that day, Sachiko and her father are feeding some birds at the park. The father sits down, lights up a cig, but becomes disturbed when he starts to hear a strange woman laughing. Through his glasses, he sees the image of a bee woman appear, who tells him that Shocker requires his aid. The father begins to walk away, and Sachiko tries to ask him what's wrong. He pushes his daughter away and continues walking. In distress, she runs over to the nearest person she can ask for help. The person is none other than a napping Takeshi Hongo, who attempts to tap the man on the shoulder. The father reacts by violently shoving Hongo onto the ground, leaving Hongo confused. So when the little girl runs over to Hongo, like we see him just kind of at like a grassy incline, just with like a newspaper or like a magazine or something covering his face, like doing the thing where he's trying to like get some shut eye, so he covers his face just to make things darker or whatever. And I totally did not expect this person to be Hongo. It really took me by surprise.
Yeah, like he's just laying around. Like it's really makes you think.
So Hongo gets back up and he's kind of pissed off, and he grabs the man, which makes Sachiko concerned, like, hey, stop being mean to my dad, which I thought was really funny. Like, she's like, listen, I told you to stop him. I didn't tell you to fucking roughhouse him. What are you doing, dude? This girl's great. The man looks at Hongo in distress and says the glasses are calling to him. The man escapes while Sachiko cries. Hongo asks the girl where her mother is, but Sachiko replies that she passed away last year. And I'm like, okay, our fellow directors are starting to take notes from the goat himself, Itaru Orita. And they're like, okay, let's work into these really good episodes. Child, abnormal family structure. Okay, let's go. The parents in peril. Okay. Anyways, we cut to Sachiko's father walking down some steps inside some sort of underground complex. This is a really cool looking basement here. As he takes in his surroundings, a door opens up slowly behind him. He turns around and comes face to face with the bee woman as he passes out. We should also say the bee woman does this laugh that like kind of echoes off into the distance, and it's like this, and it gets really grating after a bit.
Yeah, it's a little goofy.
I also like how the bee woman. So like the bee woman has a pretty elaborate costume that I think overall looks pretty good or whatever. But like her face is just a woman's face with like blue face paint on.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah. I mean, it works for what it is, but like I was kind of surprised they didn't go for the full like bee monster type motif. She just kind of looks like a lady with like a cool bee suit on. So
they had to cut costs somewhere, I guess, for the manufacturing.
Part of me wonders. So this is the first woman we get as an antagonist, and part of me wonders, like, I wonder if that's gonna be a thing where every time we get a lady, it's going to be like oh, it's gonna be like a lady in like a costume rather than like the full monster out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
see them maybe trying to do that, but we'll have to see with future stuff. Um,
For sure.
uh, Oh yeah, anyways, yeah. So B Woman laughs, he passes out. We cut back to Cafe Amigo, where Sachiko shows Hiromi her doll as Mr. Tachibana, Ruriko, and Shiro discuss the disappearance of her father. They state that it's been 3 days since the incident at the park. And this also appears to be the latest in a series of disappearances, with over 42 happening over the past 2 months. Hongo walks in and reports that he's done a little bit of research, and he found that everyone who went missing had just bought a new pair of glasses, and not only that, they all were bought from the same store, a boutique called Kagemura. Ruriko says she's gonna go investigate Kagemura herself, but Mr. Tachibana and Hongo tell her it's too dangerous. Ruriko then says it'll be okay because it appears nobody actually goes missing inside the store itself, only later. And she's also on to get some new sunglasses anyway. This apparently worked, as Mr. Tachibana and Hongo are like, yeah, that's a good point. And Hongo's like,
Yeah,
damn, I wish I could...
Hongo did not note that the man was literally saying the glasses were calling to him, like,
Yeah, and they're like, well, I mean, I guess if you disappear, like, later, like, we can probably intervene, it'll be fine, I guess. Yeah, go for it, girl. And then Hongo's like, damn, I wish I could come with you, but I got some experiments I gotta do later in the day. So we then go back to Hongo's lab, where we see Hongo studying the hearing of a puppy, which, like we said, I'm pretty sure it's one of the two puppies that we saw from the ending of the episode 7. Hongo is lost in thought, or were you gonna say something?
no, again, it's just such a weird foreshadowing, and I like the idea that, like, the end of the episode, Hongo is like, oh, cute puppies, let me go take them to my lab to experiment.
Yeah. Yeah, in hindsight, that's kind of weird. Hongo is lost in thought about the hearing capabilities of mammals because he believes his enhanced senses allowed him to hear a tone beyond the typical range of the average human ear on the day Sachiko's father ran away. Ruriko calls to Hongo wearing her new pair of sunglasses. She says that the clerk was a little bit creepy, but other than that, nothing was out of the ordinary at the shop. As Hongo warns her not to put on the sunglasses just yet, even though she already is, the glasses activate and Ruriko hears the laugh of the bee woman. As Hongo frantically asks Ruriko if she's still there, we cut to Ruriko walking towards a large abandoned building. Inside the building, a door opens and Ruriko screams. Hongo finds Ruriko's apartment door open, and she's nowhere to be found inside. Hongo hypothesizes that the glasses were able to receive signals and images on a certain frequency, beyond typical human senses, which allowed an outside party to control the wearer of the glasses. Only Shocker could possibly do something so evil. Honestly, frankly, as soon as I heard, oh yeah, 42 people disappeared recently, seemingly connected to this one shop, I'm just gonna assume we know who's behind that. Later at night, the owner of Kagemura pulls the shutter down on the shop door and drives off. This is the clerk that we saw before, by the way. Hongo tails him on his motorcycle, which he then follows the shop owner to the abandoned building that we saw earlier. Inside, the victims of the glasses walk in a single file line as ordered by a Shocker agent. B-Woman explains that the 9 people currently standing in line have been determined to be too weak to adequately serve Shocker, making them disposable. The prisoners attempt to fight back, but are easily restrained by the Shocker agents. B-Woman orders them all to be executed as part of their gas testing process. The prisoners are left alone inside the room as B-Woman orders one of her minions to fill it with a pink gas, causing them all to panic. Hongo descends down the Hidden Lairs elevator and sees the prisoners struggling to breathe. As he thinks of a way to save them, he turns around and sees the owner of Kagemura holding Ruriko hostage. So, we see B-Woman enter the room, and Hongo questions what her ulterior motives are. She replies that Shocker simply needs poison gas for their mission to take over the world, which honestly, fair enough.
Yeah.
Not a lot going on here, just trying to make some chemical weaponry. At this point, Hongo quips back that she's little more than a factory foreman. B-Woman ignores this and commands Hongo to allow her to inject him with a poison needle, and if he does, they will spare Ruriko's life. She explains that the needle won't actually kill Hongo, just paralyze him long enough for Shocker to complete his cyborg surgery, making him yet another controlled weapon under their command. Hongo agrees, and B-Woman stings him with the needle device. As Hongo fades out of consciousness, we see him grab a small blue container from his pocket and crush it, which causes him to bleed greatly. This blood also is like the goopiest-ass blood we have ever seen, to the point where I was like, oh, he broke the blue container and this red goop spilled out inside. That must be an antidote. And then I realized, like, oh no, that's supposed to be blood.
Yeah.
But
I also thought something like that, too. Like, oh man, the spaghetti sauce is coming out.
Yeah. So, we then see Hongo later finding himself chained to a chair. His right hand is still covered in blood. He breaks his chains and takes a guard captive with a sharp tool of some type. I really couldn't make out what this was. It kind of looked like a screwdriver, but I wasn't confident enough to, like... It could also be an ice pick, I think, maybe. But he demands that he serves a guide, or he demands that the Shocker agent service his guide to take him through the facility and take him back to where the prisoners were being gassed earlier in the day. We see them, they're still alive, but they seem greatly dazed as Hongo frees them from their captivity, and they stumble out of the room, groaning wildly, like they seem in some type of distress or pain. Hongo frees Sachiko's father from the room as well, but just as he does that, B-Woman appears and attacks. Hongo fights the Shocker agents, and he throws the sharp tool he was using to take the one agent prisoner right at B-Woman, who struggles to activate a trap door as she gets stabbed by the device. The lever gets pushed, Hongo falls through yet another trap door, but he transforms
once again, transformation.
Yeah, the fall is enough wind to cause him to transform into Kamen Rider, so then he just leaps back out right away. This trapdoor accomplished nothing and actually probably just helped Hongo out in the long run. He then kicks B-Woman, knocking her to the ground. Kamen Rider escorts Sachiko's father out of the building. Ruriko then runs over to him when they're outside and tells him that they still need to go back into the building and help Takeshi Hongo, who is still inside. Kamen Rider then goes, actually, no, don't worry, he's fine, he got out okay. I made sure of that. We can get out of here. And then they all make their escape. Back at home, Hongo washes his bloody hand and watches as his enhanced healing powers completely seal the wound. In his thoughts, we hear him say that he doesn't want Ruriko to know that he's a cyborg just yet, and he doesn't plan on telling her about this until he can return back to his normal self. Which, sure, I guess. If that's the way we're going with this now, I kind of thought she knew already, but whatever, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Ruriko and Hongo reunite Sachiko with her father, but then the group realizes that her father has been has had his mind completely erased by the pink gas. But then Hongo chimes in and says, don't worry, I'm pretty sure his memories will come back after he rests a little bit, which I'm like, how do you know that? But states that he is unlikely to ever remember the events that occurred at the gas factory. Back at B-Woman's base, B-Woman kills the subordinate who Hongo took hostage, and then laughs, stating that she allowed the girl to escape because she has a plan for her. Back at Cafe, I pronounced that word. Back at Cafe Amigo, Ruriko comes in with a tray of the motherfucking tea, while Hongo smacks it out of Tachibana's hand right as he's about to drink it. Mr. Tachibana is completely baffled by this, but then Hongo puts a wrapper or something in the spilt tea, which reveals that it's some sort of acidic compound. Hongo brushes Ruriko's hair back, revealing a large earring that is receiving B-Woman's signal. Hongo removes the earring and then tells Mr. Tachibana he can use the signal to trace B-Woman's whereabouts. Ruriko comes back to her senses and then begins to cry. Hongo rides his motorcycle down a dirt trail, transforming into Kamen Rider as he goes. He finds B-Woman and her minions in a quarry, and they fight. At some point in this fight, Kamen Rider uses one of the Shocker agent's swords to stab a guy in the dick. That happened.
Yeah? Yeah?
After defeating the agents, Kamen Rider and B-Woman lock blades. Kamen Rider disarms her, and then throws his own sword onto the ground. He tells her that people like her who steal freedom and disrupt peace must pay. He finishes her off with a rider kick, causing her to scream and roll down a hill. She then dissolves into some, kind of like a foam, but they have like a filter over it, and then like she kind of turns from the foam into this like weird like liquid goop that like kind of looks like honey. I get like it kind of looks like she's dissolving into like pollen and honey, which is kind of neat. Not as cool as the glass, but
it's it's a reuse of like some of the foam effects they had in like earlier episodes. So it's not the best effect, but it's definitely better than like the beads. So
yeah. Later on, Sachiko and her father reunite once more, this time with his memories intact. We see Hongo drive down a highway as the narrator says that the forces of Shocker lurk everywhere in the city, even in some of the cars on this very highway. They plan to alter innocent people to achieve their dark goals, and every last one of them needs to be stopped. This episode was also directed by Hidetoshi Kitamura, who you may remember from also directing episode 5, the Mantis Man episode, with all the earthquake shenanigans. Like his previous episode, I thought this one was serviceable, just okay, kind of forgettable. It was fine, wasn't offensive. Kind of hard to follow up our boy Orita.
Yeah, like, I think the running theme is that, like, the episodes are definitely, like, if you asked me to give you like a standard run-of-the-mill Kamen Rider episode, then like this kind of fits the bill. Like it definitely demonstrates the main concept of Kamen Rider as like a guy who fights fascists, lurking under the like normal society. Other than that, it doesn't do too much or push like any of like the deeper ideas underneath, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Want to move on to episode 9?
I just also want to know too, like I think this particular episode, I kind of wonder if along with some others, like if Kamen Rider Build had some partial influence on this, just cause like the gas and the memory stuff kind of made me think, I've seen this before,
Oh yeah, actually, I do have some Kamen Rider influence on build trivia for next episode, because I was doing a little bit of research to look up some, director stuff as I do, and I stumbled onto some info about episode 9, the terrifying Cobra Man, or the monstrous Cobra Man. At a Shocker base, an agent walks into a room with a glass case containing a set of fangs. The Shocker leader commands Cobra Man to put these fangs into his mouth, which he does with his Cobra arm, which is literally just like his arm is just a cobra that he can extend out.
Okay, like, I'm just gonna say this right off the back. This is probably the funniest, goofiest monster outfit they had on the show yet. Like...
Absolutely, and I don't hate it, but it's very silly looking.
Yeah, like the main body like has like some goofy coloration going on, but like it also has like the hand puppets going on like too.
Yeah,
it's really ooh.
Yeah, there's an episode. There's a part of the episode later on where Cobra Man like extends out the like Cobra to like kind of harass Hongo, I think is how I worded in the summary, and like it just kind of looks like it's a puppet getting way too up close in this dude's face, and it's making him uncomfortable. It's super funny.
Yeah. I also just like how like this Cobra Man was not born with a set of fangs, apparently. Like,
so
no,
I think
like,
the idea is that he had fangs, but these are super duper special fangs.
Yeah. No, that makes
that he
a lot
puts
of
like
sense.
over his real fangs. It's weird. Anyways, so the Shocker leader explains that when the substance found inside these special fangs combined with a substance that is naturally found within the Cobra Man's body, they will combine and then they can be pumped out by his, I think they say like his heart or something like that. But it gets pumped out by some organ, but then he can shoot out a powerful gas from his Cobra arm that can dissolve any substance in the world. A Shocker agent brings in a tied-up other Shocker agent. The leader explains that this man is no longer useful as a combatant, making him the perfect test subject for the acidic gas. Cobra Man shoots out his Cobra arm, which opens up its mouth and sprays the man with the gas, causing him to dissolve into foam. The Shocker leader states that they will use Cobra Man's newfound power to steal all the world's gold, starting with the Japanese gold repository. Still very salty about losing out on Hitler's private stash, apparently.
Yeah. fitting episode order for this, I think.
Yeah. Later that night, a guard named Kondo roams the dark corridors of the Japanese gold repository. Shining his flashlight through the darkness, Kondo becomes concerned as he hears strange noises behind him, and we also, I believe at this point, see the ominous shadow of Cobra Man lurking in the distance. He turns around and shines his light directly onto the face of another guard, who asks him if everything's alright and if there's anything wrong going on. He calms down, realizes that he's probably just being a little paranoid. It's also time for a shift change, so Kondo makes his way down a set of stairs and towards the building's exit, says hello to a few guards that he passes by, and then stops to talk to one guard who tells Kondo that he better get home pretty soon, so that his son isn't lonely. But then he tells the guard that as long as his son has his dog to play with, he doesn't care what his old man gets up to. The two laugh, and then they part ways. We then go into Kondo's home, and it seems like that the guards seem to live at the repository, or at the very least, like, the set of apartments that they live in is connected to the repository. Which was kind of weird.
Peculiar housing setup they had going on there.
I feel like if you have a bunch of, like, gold bars or something, you don't want people living where you keep that. I feel like that's setting yourself up to get guards who will, like, steal shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like you want people to guard your place that don't live nearby. That just seems weird to me, but who knows? Anyways, as Kondo makes his way inside his home, he pets the family dog, Dummy, and tries to wake his sleeping son.
I wonder what the thought process was behind naming this dog.
Yeah, it was weird. We cut back to the repository, where Cobra Man incapacitates the guard who relieved Kondo from his duty, gassing him and causing him to dissolve into foam. But when we say dissolve into foam, like we see him, like, cover his face, and then a bunch of foam bursts out, and then we see, like, the typical, like, foam effect to, like, show the body dissolving. Probably the best use of the foam we've seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that they actually use the foam in, like, the scene, and not just, like, in the insert footage.
Cut to, like, an insert shot of, like, foam on, like, a wood background or something. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
He then uses his Cobra arm to spray gas, which then starts to dissolve the doors to the gold vault. Back inside Kondo's home, Kondo's son wakes up with a start and is concerned because Dummy seems to be alerted to something. Dummy leaps up from his resting spot and then runs out the door, which is still open just a crack. He rushes to the vault's entrance. Dummy corners Cobra Man, barking at him and causing him to drop his fangs from his mouth. I don't really know how. Like, Cobra Man just kind of jolts back, and this dog is barking at him, kind of getting him trapped into the corner. And he's like, oh no, my fangs fell.
Once again, Shocker proving to be the biggest jobbers in the universe.
Losing to a dog literally named Dummy.
Yeah.
The next day, we see newspapers being printed with the headline and subheads, Gold Reserves attacked last night. No gold bars taken. Investigation regarding death of security guard. We then cut to Hongo riding on his motorcycle, thinking once again that Shocker must be behind this attack. At Cafe Amigo, Hongo tells Mr. Tachibana he's going to the repository to track Shocker's trail. Ruriko presents Hongo with a locket, which she says has a charm of protection inside. Mr. Tachibana laughs and jokes that it's actually a bell for a cat, because they never know where Hongo might run off to. Kondo returns to his home and finds it ransacked. Cobra Man and his Shocker minions capture him. Cobra Man tells Kondo that he knows his dog took his fangs back to him, and he wants to know where he put them. Kondo tells Cobra Man that his dog is dead, and Cobra Man asks what he did with the corpse. We cut to the dog's grave, which features a wooden cross with the inscription, Here lies Dummy, on it. As the camera pulls out from the inscription, we see Kondo's son placing a flower on the grave and praying. As he prays, he says, Poor Dummy, I hope you're in heaven now, Dummy.
I can't take it seriously.
Yeah, I know. He walks back only to encounter the Cobra Man and his minions. As the child is captured by Shocker, Hongo, riding his motorcycle on a nearby path, hears the boy's cries for help with his enhanced hearing. He transforms into Kamen Rider as he chases Cobra Man's car to an abandoned building, which I'm 95% sure is the exact same filming location as the abandoned building they used last episode. Like, I don't think it's supposed to be, like, the same building in the show, but, like, it's definitely the same abandoned building they used for the location, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that, too.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I sometimes pick up on, like, reused footage, like, reused set pieces, but I also just catch it more for, like, I think for, like, other shows as well. Like, I think in this episode, like, I can't say 100% for sure, but, like, I think the majority of, like, the next couple of scenes has a set from, like, oh god, this is really specific, like, some of the first, like, episode or so of, like, Kamen Rider Blade. Like, I've seen only, like, a couple episodes of that, and I was able to pick up on that, so I don't know. Like,
Interesting.
There's definitely a stock, reel of sets that they like to use over and over. Easy shooting locations, I guess.
Yeah. As Shocker agents and the Cobra Man emerge from their hiding spots in the building's higher floors, Kamen Rider leaps up and fights them. Kamen Rider demands that Cobra Man return the child, but Cobra Man refuses. He attempts to strike Cobra Man with his Cobra... He attempts to strike Kamen Rider with his Cobra arm. I flipped their names there. But then the attack is blocked. Cobra Man seems shocked that Kamen Rider was able to block his blow, and then begins to spin, burrowing deep into the earth below. This looks real funny.
Yeah.
Kamen Rider bends down and puts his ear to the hole Cobra Man just created, which seems way too small for what he just did. But whatever.
Yeah, it's like a groundhog hole.
I like to think they started to, like, dig, and they're like, this is fucking good enough for, like, the 3 seconds of footage we need, right? Like, that's quality day, guys. We don't need to build a man-sized hole that's fucking dumb.
That's how interns were just not having it.
Using his superhuman hearing, Kamen Rider determines the direction Cobra Man is heading underground and gives chase. Inside another Shocker base, the young boy is tied up and dangling over a boiling pool of red liquid. Cobra Man raises his arm to the child and demands to know where the fangs are located. The boy claims not to know. As they talk, one of the boy's shoes comes loose and falls into the liquid below, causing it to erupt into flames. Cobra Man continues to question the boy and says something along the lines of, "Did you see what happened to your shoe? That's going to be you if you don't start talking, kid." Hongo rides into the scene. The Shocker agents on the lookout tower spot him coming into the parking spot that he chooses kind of nearby, and then they raise an alarm. Cobra Man and his minions rush outside and hide. Cobra Man then reveals to his minions that he's set up several mines to deal with Kamen Rider, no matter which way he decides to come in from. One of them detonates as Kamen Rider flips away to evade the blast. Spotting Cobra Man, Kamen Rider once again demands that he free the child. Hongo battles the Shocker agents. Cobra Man runs inside and begins to lower the boy into the boiling pool. Kamen Rider thankfully rushes in, but Cobra Man tells him not to take another step if he wants the child to live. As Kamen Rider puts his hands in the air in surrender, we cut to Mr. Tachibana parking his car and using a compass to locate Hongo, as we learn that the charm was actually just a tracking device. I was wondering how the charm was going to play into the episode here. So,
yeah.
Back at the Shocker base.
Real quick.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I think this is another episode of, like, I don't know, like, it's not as bad as, like, the other episode with, like, a kid trying to fake, like, being sad, but, like, this kid definitely did not sound as concerned about, like, the boiling pool of, like,
this kid was taking it like a champ. He was, like...
Yeah! Like, pretty stone-faced about it, all things considered. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like...
There's a part later where there's a part during this or something where he's dangling from like a boiling trap or whatever, and he's like, "Help me, I'm scared," but like he seems pretty in control of the situation, like emotionally.
Yeah.
As Hongo battles the Shocker agents, Cobra Man runs inside and oh wait, no, I read this already. Back at the Shocker base, Hongo is strapped down to a table. The scientists loom over him, preparing to complete his cyborg transformation and brainwashing. I kind of like that this has kind of been a recurring element of the show, too, where it's like, well, we could defeat Kamen Rider, or we could actually complete his transformation, and then he'd be a very powerful asset for us to take advantage of and have under our control.
Yeah.
I like that that's still on the table as a threat.
For sure.
The Shocker leader taunts Hongo as Cobra Man walks into the room along with the child who has passed out. Cobra Man tells his boss that he ran the child through a lie detector test, and the results proved he genuinely actually just has no clue where the things are. But as Cobra Man is explaining this, the Shocker leader cuts him off and tells Cobra Man it will take 6 more months to create a new set of fangs for him. Hongo laughs and tells Cobra Man that he destroyed the fangs and threw them into the ocean. We later learned that this is actually a lie, but I like to think that Hongo was just like, oh, I'm really pissed off that other guy, like that Chameleon guy. When I told him about
it worked
the Nazi
last
treasure.
time.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, because like, at first we don't know this, we don't learn this is a lie until the end of the episode. So like, I'm watching this and I'm just like, Hongo, do you know a dude with a boat, or do you have a boat? Like, how do you keep throwing this shit into the ocean? So that was funny, but Cobra Man is infuriated by this information and then sends out his Cobra Man to harass Hongo, kind of like I talked about earlier. Like, he extends out the Cobra, and like its tongue is just kind of flicking on his cheek as he's like strapped down to this table, and Hongo's like freaking out. And then suddenly the door opens. Out comes Mr. Tachibana, rushing into battle for the first time in the series.
Yeah.
And actually doing well. Like he's
really holding his own. Like,
yeah, like he's engaged Shocker before in the series, but it's always never really gone well for him. But like, he takes a few fuckers out here.
Yeah.
So yeah, he dispatches several Shocker agents and then even manages to steal one of their knives, which he then throws onto the control panel that's attached to the table Hongo is strapped into. This causes a circuit to blow on the table, and Hongo's restraints all release. Hongo then rushes over to help Mr. Tachibana fend off the agents, grabbing the young boy along the way. They escape from the base just as explosions start to occur, causing smoke to shoot out from the tunnel they just ran out of. Kamen Rider defeats several more Shocker agents as they make their escape, throwing several of them onto Cobra Man's mines that he had previously laid, causing them to explode. This explosion effect is great because, like, we see, like, them get thrown, and then as soon as the explosion goes off, like, we see them, like, disappear because they shut to, like...
Yeah.
Or they cut to, like, a different shot of the explosion, like, explosive going off. But it looks like these people are just getting vaporized by these explosions.
Yeah.
It's really good. This show started pretty rough the first 6 episodes, but like, man, there's some pretty cool stuff going on in these 3 episodes here. You can tell that they're either getting access to more money as they're making these, or they're just deciding to use them better. Or something's going on here. Maybe they have different talent on board too for these effects too, overseeing things. Who could say? But
more experience too. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe they're just getting better with experience as well. That's exactly true. But yeah, these 3 episodes noticeably, I think, were a lot more impressive from a visual and production standpoint than the first 6. So Kamen Rider chases Cobra Man up the lookout tower that we saw before when Kamen Rider first arrived and the alarm was sounded. The two do battle. Using a rider kick, Kamen Rider kicks Cobra Man off the edge of the tower and onto the ground below, where he conveniently lands on a mine and then fucking explodes. The child cheers on Kamen Rider as he rides past on his bike, and then he asks Mr. Tachibana where he's going. We then see Kamen Rider walking up to Dummy's grave with a large bouquet of flowers in his hand. He places the flowers down, notices Cobra Man's misplaced fangs embedded in the earth below, and then Kamen Rider grabs a hold of them as he hears the child's voice in the distance. This is where we hear Kamen Rider say, oh, they were actually just at this grave the whole time, revealing that the whole thing about destroying the fangs and throwing them into the ocean was just a lie to piss off Cobra Man, which honestly, very funny. I know I say that a lot, but this show genuinely has a lot of, like, good comedic bits that are, like, intended, where it's just like, oh yeah, Hongo's just full of shit, that he just wanted to make that guy mad. That's great.
Yeah.
Mr. Tachibana, Ruriko, and the boy all run up to the grave as the child wonders aloud who could have possibly visited Dummy's grave and left a bouquet. other than, obviously he and his father. Mr. Tachibana then tells him that it just must have been the Kamen Rider, and the boy places a second bouquet besides the first and decides to pray for his lost dog once more. After a little bit of silence, the boy asks Mr. Tachibana if he could go meet the Kamen Rider again, and while Mr. Tachibana acts a little bit aloof about this, Ruriko promises him that she'll one day bring him along to visit the boy again. As they walk back, Ruriko wonders why Takeshi didn't decide to come along with them. Mr. Tachibana reveals that she shouldn't worry, showcasing that, in fact, he did put a transmitter inside of her gift charm to him that was received earlier in the episode, and then they both start laughing as they walk off into the distance with the boy in tow. The narrator then tells us that Kamen Rider foiled Cobra Man's plans, but his rage, hatred, and determination to fight Shocker only grow stronger. This is also the part where I'm starting to realize, damn, I feel like they're really starting to kind of shoehorn in these narrator bits because they're running out of things to talk about.
Yeah!
The first six were real good.
It sucks being Kamen Rider!
But, I keep thinking about the one from, I think it was episode 4, where it was, everyone has someone who cares about them. But for Takeshi Hongo, he is alone in his battle against the Shocker as a cyborg or whatever. They had some really good shit in there, but, these feel pretty nothing in comparison.
Yeah.
Sadly.
They're there because it's the format, so...
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, they had to write 98 of these fucking things. Not all of them are gonna be bangers.
Yeah. Also, okay, I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I just imagined this or not, but did the boy at some point say whether or not, the Cobra Man actually killed the dog? Because I feel like there was a line like that somewhere, and
yeah, there's a part where the boy's cheering on Kamen Rider, and he goes, "Yeah, Kamen Rider killed the guy who killed my dog, yay!" And
okay, yeah, no, that was confusing me, because, the Cobra Man, after, the failed bank robbery bit, was oh, what happened to the dog? Where's the dog? And, I just think, I think this just really confused me, because I was okay, wait.
The way I interpreted this, and this is probably a reach, and I'm probably putting too much work into this explanation, but what I thought watching the episode, just on first reaction, was that the dog, being a dog, grabbed the fangs with its mouth and then ran back home. And because it had the fangs in its mouth, it must have got some of that, poison substance inside of it, and then that killed the dog shortly after.
Okay.
That was my read on it. That's the only way that makes sense to me.
That makes a lot of sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. No, that.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, there is no evidence to support this other than we see the dog run back home, and we learn later the dog died. But I just assumed that it grabbing those fangs probably caused it to get poisoned or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some super subtext right there. I don't know how many kids would have gotten that. To be honest.
Hey, they're not here for that. They just want to see the big Cobra guy get exploded.
Yeah.
We also... Did you watch the next... I don't know if you have been watching the next episode previews. I usually haven't been until I reached the 3rd episode. But every now and again I'll watch it.
I saw a little bit of the first couple seconds. I was oh shit,
Yeah, I guess to just reveal it for the audience, the episode preview reveals that the Cobra Man will be back next week, despite getting destroyed here. So, literally falling into a mine and exploding here. So that'll be interesting. But I did do a little bit of research when looking up the director of this episode, and then found out a little bit about Cobra Man, actually, because he's kind of important. So, this episode was directed by Minoru Yamada, who also worked on Kamen Rider all the way through its various series and its run throughout the mid 80s. After which it appeared that he seemed to retire after, I think there was a crossover thing in 1984 that was the last thing he was attached to, and then after that he retired, at least from Kamen Rider. Maybe he worked on other stuff, but he was pretty old by that point, it seemed like, and he passed away, it looks like, in 95 or so. So this work was kind of, well, maybe not this work, but his later Kamen Rider work was some of the last stuff he did, it sounds like. He is notable not only for directing many different episodes of Kamen Rider, but he also directed a lot of the early Kamen Rider movies, including two original movies for the 1971 series that I believe at some point we should figure out when those happen in the episode order, and then we'll probably have an episode for each where we cover those.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting, some of you who are familiar with Kamen Rider and watching us kind of make our way through it may note that, there's a movie adaptation of episode 13, because that was a thing that old Kamen Riders seemed to like to do, where they would take certain episodes and then just make that episode into a longer movie. Like, they'd literally just make a movie adaptation of the episode and just flesh it out a little bit more. But from what I've seen online, those don't seem to be translated often, if at all. I had a really hard time tracking down the one for episode 13 that's coming up soon. Like, I just couldn't find it if it's ever been translated into English. And after doing a little bit of digging about why this is, it sounds like the general consensus, at least in the Western fandom, is that, like, they're not really... Like, they're literally just extended versions of the episodes, and, like, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of fandom interest in actually translating them or spending any amount of time on them, just because people are like, it's whatever. They're not really that great. They're literally just another way for them to make a movie out of material that they recorded and, you know, have something else that they can sell. So we probably won't be watching episode 13's movie, just because it seems like that's an impossibility, but... Kamen Rider vs. Shocker, the first movie, and Kamen Rider vs. Ambassador Hell, the second movie, are both original stories that take place between episodes and came out between different episodes, and were both directed by Mr. Yamada here. So, yeah, pretty prolific guy, it sounds like. And overall, I think he made a pretty good episode. I like this episode a fair bit.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's not up there with my man Orita, but... I like this one a lot. And then another thing do you want to say anything about your reaction to the episode, actually, before I talk more trivia?
Oh no, I'm good. Like, I think, like, definitely, like, it's probably better than, like, the previous episode. I do like how there's a weird continuity with, like, Takeshi Hongo's hearing ability being a through line between the two. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if they're gonna add more powers as the series goes on, as some of the modern Kamen Rider series like to do as well. Just, hey, here's some new toys for you to play with, kids.
I'm inevitably waiting for the moment where our main man is gonna get taken out in a horrific motorcycle crash, so... Yeah. And the actor needs to... Well, not be replaced, but they need to introduce a second character, because I know that's what they do. But enough about that. This episode is also notable for being the first appearance of Cobra Man, who is apparently a recurring villain. I guess that makes sense. We know he shows up next episode. He is apparently one of the most iconic antagonists to appear from this original show. He really made an impact on people. And apparently part of that was the fact that he was the first monster of the bunch to actually come back for more than one episode. Like, he was the first one to make a return, like, and come back stronger, it sounds like. And that really captured a bunch of kids' imaginations. And apparently there is a lot of shout-outs and influence to be had from him on future antagonists in many different future Kamen Rider shows, including our friend Bloodstock from Kamen Rider Build.
Yep.
Which explains the Cobra full bottle.
Yep.
And also I thought about, he kind of shoots gas and stuff around. Well, I guess that's more of a Kamen Rider, not Bat, but, what's his name again? Purple guy.
Purple guy. Wait, which purple guy?
The guy who shoots the fog. Starts as an antagonist, gets better later.
Oh yeah, Night Rogue. Yeah.
Night Rogue, yes.
No, okay, because when you were saying purple guy, my brain went to not him, but like Kamen Rider Ryuki, because the Snake Rider in that one is also purple. So.
Oh, okay.
No, like, yeah, see, it's Cobra Man along with Spider and Bat. That's like the popular trifecta of Kamen Rider references that you'll see throughout like the series. So
I see.
yeah,
those are a good three to choose.
Yeah, that was pretty
actually,
good.
I don't know. Spider-Man's the weak one of those three, but he's okay. He can stay. He was the first one.
I mean, see, like I think Spider-Man and Batman have a pass because Spider-Man and Batman are pretty
Yeah,
good
that's true.
names.
That's true. I have nothing else to say for this episode. Do you?
Not really. I mean, like, it kind of falls into like standard Kamen Rider episode territory as well. So
yeah,
I don't think there's too much notable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like this one a fair bit more than the ones that we've seen directed by. I need to scroll up to remember his name. The ones that we've seen directed by Hidetoshi Kitamura so far, at least. But yeah, this was definitely just like, oh yeah, there's another serialized adventure for a hero to go on. But yeah, it was a fun time. I guess in general, we're almost approaching the 10% mark of having watched this show now, and let's get a general vibe check. I think, Fang, how are you liking Kamen Rider 1971 so far?
I think, like, in general, like, it's enjoyable. I think it definitely shows its age at times. But there are like particular episodes where like the effects really go off, like, and like just seeing like the creative like I guess moves taken to like get around restraints has been very interesting, and I think has been generally pretty cool to see when they do work. And if they don't work, then it's a good laugh. But
yeah.
I think that definitely I am curious how much the status quo will change in the next upcoming episodes, because definitely I can feel that monster of the week cycle. I mean, even before it was already settling in, but yeah.
I've been thinking about, because I am also enjoying the show greatly. I'm having a really good time. But I definitely can already tell this is going to be a show that lives or dies based off of how many interesting, like, how well they're going to be able to shake up that Monster of the Week formula. I feel like there aren't going to be... I have a feeling there is not going to be much in the way of a connective mythology arc or greater main plot that we're going to be followed. I genuinely think that the rest of the 98 episodes, or the... I guess it'd be 89 episodes we have left to watch now, I think are going to be predominantly Monster of the Week stuff. And I'm fine with that. I just hope that they manage to mix things up enough and make it not overstay its welcome, because 98 episodes is a lot of television to be doing like the same stuff. And
yeah, like they need to have some pretty good monsters and some pretty good subplots, or like just standalone episodes, I guess. And like I think in general, like I kind of figured that like the approach when taking to the series too is that like it's a little more like cartoony than the modern stuff. Like I think episode like 7 with Kamen Rider just so happening to be in like the coffin that they dig up without any explanation, like that was the moment where I'm like, okay, like this is sort of the approach that I need to be taking with the series, is that it's kind of like a cartoon. Yeah, right? Like, damn. That's like that's a bit right there. Like,
Yeah.
and I think this is just coming off of the differences between like the modern series, where starting with Kuga, they incorporate more realistic like drama elements. So like typically, even if it gets like goofy and toyetic, like there's still sort of a consistent logic that they follow. So
Yeah.
not necessarily bad. It's just a different mindset that you have to get into. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. So
Yeah, I'm just worried about us like hitting a batch of episodes where we're just like, oh, these are all kind of stinkers or clunkers or unoriginal. Hopefully,
yeah,
I am having a good time with the episodes that we've all seen so far, though. Like, I don't think I've seen any episode of the show yet that I would call a bad episode.
yeah.
Like, some of them
for
are
sure.
average more so than like good or outstanding or anything like that. But like, if it keeps up with this level of quality and they manage to still make it unique enough and have enough creative ideas, like, I'm totally fine with this level of quality that we're at now, staying all the 98 episodes through and probably being fine enough to make it feel like I wasn't, pulling teeth watching the show. So
For sure. Yeah, like, it hasn't gone aggravating yet. Like, I don't really... There's not, like, anything that I outright, like, hate or anything. Like, the characters are, like, not, like, terrible or anything like that. Or, like, the plot's not super contrived. So,
yeah.
Even if it gets a little goofy or not explained very well, like the dog, it's still not... I still wouldn't call it, like, bad, so...
Yeah. I don't got anything else to say, so I feel like we can wrap it up here. I also haven't eaten dinner yet, and it's 9:49 p.m., and I'm sorry if you heard my stomach grumbling throughout this recording. I'm starving. So I think I'm going to go make me some dinner and probably call this an episode, if that sounds good with you.
Yep, you go eat. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. You too,
you
Fang.
need it. You deserve it. Yeah, thank you.
I got no job. I got no food. Shocker.
You gotta have...
And this is when the narrator comes in and he's like, Rasen Bran has a lot of things to be thankful for in life, including a semi-successful YouTube channel and the podcast people listen to, but he's still fucking hungry, and he is soon going to be without a job.
To be continued.
To be continued.